We're going to talk today about building a global brand. So I know a lot of you guys are still in the early stages of building your businesses, but creating a brand and a strong brand is going to be something that's really critical for you, regardless of whether you're selling to customers, to consumers, or even to merchants. Your brand is going to be one of the most important things that you develop. And there'll be a point at time when you'll also think about how you take that brand global. So the people we have joining us today are all really experts at building global brands, and so we're very lucky to have them here. I'm going to do a quick introduction of each of our panelists, and then we're going to roll into some questions. I'll leave some time at the end for you guys to ask them questions as well. So on to the introduction. So Adam is here. He's the CEO and co-founder of Movember, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. Adam has a background in web and mobile marketing, but his career took a bit of a left turn in 2003 when his brother challenged him to grow a mustache. How all good career stories start. The two wondered whether they could bring the mustache back in vogue and in the process raise awareness for men's health, along with raise money for prostate cancer research. Thus began the Movember movement, of which Garone is the CEO. For those of you who don't know, does everyone know Movember? Yes? Okay. So does anyone not know Movember? Okay, at least a couple women, surprisingly. Okay, so Movember is fairly simple. Men actually begin in November the 1st, clean shaven, and then they've got 30 days to grow out their mustaches while seeking out sponsorship for their efforts. And I don't know if any of you guys have done it or your friends, but there are varying levels of success, I would say. Not everyone is born to grow a mustache. The proceeds from the sponsorships all go to the Prostate Cancer Foundation. It's the world's largest non-government funder of prostate cancer research, with more than 1.9 million participants, and they've raised almost $300 million US to date, so it's a really big deal.
Just to, that didn't include last year where we raised $140 million in 6 weeks.
So 340, even better. They've got campaigns in 21 countries, and their aim, which I love, is to have an everlasting impact on the face of men's health. So welcome, Adam. It's great to have you here. Next is Samantha. So Samantha is a jewellery designer, and she's the CEO of her company, which is Samantha Wills. Raised on the beaches of Australia's East Coast, Samantha moved to Sydney and established her self-titled accessories company when she was just 21. She displayed her debut collection at Australian Fashion Week in 2004, and in 2008 she was a finalist in the Telstra Business Women's Awards. She's entirely self-taught, but designs really come as second nature for her, and she started handcrafting pieces for friends and family when she was in high school. Tipped by fashion writer Inez Mendoza to be, and I love this quote, Australia's biggest export since Vegemite. It's a tough act to follow, but very impressive. Wills is inspired by world travels, culture and life experiences. She does a lot of travelling. She travels to different parts of the world about 8 months of the year and divides her time between her homes in Sydney and New York. In 2011, Samantha was also hailed as the breakout star by the New York Times. So great to have you here, Samantha. And next we have Michael, and Michael is the CEO of North America and Europe for Forex. Now I know at least a couple of you have used Forex. Put up your hand if you've used it or you know. Okay, good. So you've got some good customers here. Fantastic. The Forex was first launched in '98 as an information-only website, but now it actually provides foreign exchange services to over 100,000 customers in 6 continents. Last year, Forex did 300,000 fund transfers and 8 billion in foreign exchange transactions, which is a lot of money. They've got 1 million website visitors each month. They've got 150 staff and offices in Sydney, London, Toronto, San Francisco, Hong Kong, and Auckland. So 3, I think you'll agree, really interesting and diverse panellists, all of whom in different ways have developed very strong global brands. So we're going to dive into the questions now, and my first question for you guys is really, why is building a global brand important? So Adam, we'll start with you. So mustaches have obviously quite a rich global heritage. Was it obvious to you that you should globalize, or did it take some thinking?
Initially it wasn't. I mean, this started in Melbourne and 30 guys in 2003 and grew from there. And in 2004 we realised the potential to take growing moustaches into a movement. And at that stage, what we wanted to do something was in our community and within Australia. And we just were inspired by the women around us, what they were doing for breast cancer, and just realised that there was nothing for men's health and nothing for prostate cancer, which has the same social impact. So that became our go-to cause. And along the way, we created our tagline, which is changing the face of men's health. And what we focused on initially was the sort of the fundamentals of our organisation, which were the team, the people, our brand, our technology platform, and then of course the cause and where the money would go. So we were solely focused on our community initially, and then Australia. And it was in year 3 that we had a lot of interest from New Zealand, the US, Canada, and the UK. And then we realised the potential to take it global. And I think reflecting back on it, one of the smartest things we did was we didn't go after the biggest markets initially. We took the campaign to New Zealand in 2006, and we thought that it's clearly different markets. Culturally, it's very similar, and proximity-wise, very close. So we went there and thought we can learn a lot from that experience, and then take those learnings before we come to the larger markets. And that was a critical part of our success in going global. And then in 2007, we bought the campaign here, Canada and the UK, and then 21 countries now. The other thing that we realised along the way was that we could only raise so much money in Australia, and last year we raised $29 million in Australia of 140 million US dollars. And what's important to us is not finding the Australian cure for prostate cancer, it's finding the cure. And whether that comes from Canada or the UK or the US, it'll have a global impact. So for us along the way, we suddenly realised the potential for us to raise more money, which funds research, would ultimately achieve our vision. And then along the way, there's been some great side effects of that. We're now funding research in 21 countries, and when we went to all the researchers and asked them what they were studying, there was constant themes. And then we said to the researchers in Sydney, hey, do you know the guys in Montreal and London and Dublin and Boston and LA that are studying the same thing? And what they're doing is exceptionally complex, but they didn't even know each other existed, let alone collaborate. And the way cancer research is designed is highly competitive and not collaborative. So we're changing and breaking those rules now. So if you want Movember funding for research, it's all about collaboration, and we know that will accelerate outcomes for all men and their families.
That's great. So it's obviously got from the consumer side the global appeal, but also from the research side, it just sort of made sense for you guys as well.
Absolutely.
That's great. Samantha, so speaking of global brands, you have a fairly unique situation where the brand of your company is also your name. Can you talk a little bit about how you came to that decision and whether it has helped or provided any challenges for you as you've gone global?
I'm obviously very humble to call it after myself, so obnoxious. I think, in this day and age, we very much see ourselves as a digital brand, and we've moved that way. When I started the company, Facebook wasn't invented. I said that to someone the other day that was in our office, and I was like, when I was your age, Facebook wasn't invented. I was like, I just became my mother, where I was like, wanted to deliver one of those lines. And it's really true that, we have become a digital brand. We have a very strong social media following. We have over 70,000 fans on Facebook, 25,000 on Instagram, and it grows rapidly every single day. And I think that having the brand as your name, it's a lot easier to evoke an emotional connection when you're talking directly to consumers. And we very much believe that our consumer these days, she doesn't want to be spoken to, she wants to be part of the conversation. So it's a lot easier to do that in a very true manner when it's coming from a person, from someone's morals and beliefs, rather than going, well, we're a brand, let's create a story, or let's manufacture something around that. So I think that's helped us a lot.
That's great. And as you, so you obviously started in Australia. Was it obvious to you that you should move to the US, or was that something that took?
It was very opportunistic, actually. Our product, which I'm wearing, is quite big, and it was shown very well on red carpet. So we're getting a lot of celebrity placement over here, which garnered a lot of retail interest. And we kind of gave the brand in 2008, we kind of handed it to an agent over here, and we felt that, as agents do, they're very opportunistic in placing product wherever they can write orders, and we didn't really know where the product was being placed. And as a brand that didn't have a profile behind it in the United States, we really needed someone on the ground here to guide it and make sure it was being nurtured how we wanted it to be perceived. Because when we look at the States, we don't look at it, well, the secondary motive to us being here is financial. The first motive is that that's where global brands are built. And people aren't, when we roll out through Europe or Asia, then like, what's your distribution in Australia? Because they don't know David Jones, or they don't know these retailers that are our key retailers in Australia. They're like, what does your distribution look like in the United States? So my move over here was really to guide that and make sure we're seen in the right places and our communications were true to our brand.
Excellent. So so this is for you, I guess, that particularly in this industry, the US is the hub of global brands. So if you wanted to be a brand, you would need to come to the US to get a position here.
I think in our field, it's just such a, our fashion is very celebrity driven. It's just such a visual platform that for us, we're very, on the topic of celebrity, we're very choosy with who we dress, because if we're dressing someone like Kim Kardashian, that's not the message that we want to be sending. Our message is very different to that. So something like that does drive fashion sales and commercial fashion sales, which is the business we're in.
Great, thank you. And then Michael, so obviously it's hard to do foreign exchange without some type of foreign presence, but why did you guys, I mean, you run Europe and North America. I'd love you to share a little bit why you went so aggressively after the consumer market in Europe and North America.
Yeah. Very interesting, even to be sitting up here and talking about global brand, because we actually debate and discuss global brand at the leadership level or even with our investors and our board all the time. We actually took an Australian company, which is called Forex, and thought that going global with that one single brand wasn't the best approach. If we were to restart that today, would we do that the same? That's, potentially, or we might take where we would run Forex globally. We went into the UK as our second geography and actually did some A/B testing and decided that through the results that actually people like that local UK Forex instead of Forex. And so we actually had 4 times as many people sign up with us under that brand than the Forex brand. And being in the financial business, having that local presence that strong, they're secure, it's safe to deal with because we're dealing with people's money and a lot of it. And so that was so important for us. So that just started to snowball, that effect. And so we went into Canada and named it Canadian Forex, and then into the US and named it US Forex. It's interesting that U.S. has been our latest place to launch because it is probably our biggest opportunity. And at the time I wasn't around when we were launching into those other geographies, but the brand presence, now we have 6 brands around the world, and it creates its challenges, but it creates such a quick win when you go into new geography. And for us, we'll have 25,000 customers sign up with us in the U.S. alone this year. We had 1,700 customers sign up with us last month alone, and we're 10, 11 months old in the U.S. And that's a lot to do with the U.S. Forex brand and not trying to educate why Australian business is over here trying to touch my money. They think we're local. We have a local presence. We have a local office and local people on the ground. And that's been, a unique way. Not too many people do it that way, but it's been great and very successful for us.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize that you had different brands in different countries, but I guess that's a tough challenge. There's a lot of synergy, I guess, in having the same brand. But I guess what you guys realized was that the name Oz Forex that you felt like would have been a little disruptive in different markets?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't around at that time
Right.
as part of the business, so I can only speak for the leadership at that time. But yeah, the idea that Australia wasn't really known as a financial marketplace.
Right.
And so, to come in and UK being a very much a hub for foreign exchange and international payments, that it just felt easier to go with the UK Forex. Again, if we were to restart it, I don't think we would do that.
Right.
But it has been great success for us.
Good. And I guess that's another good lesson that some of the decisions in branding that you make early have a lot of implications. So it's sort of a decision that was made early that has had a good reason at the time, but has probably created a lot of complexity down the line as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so we're going to move on a little bit about, we've been talking about why a global brand is important, and we'll talk a bit about some of the keys to success. So what are some of the things that have made the expansion for these guys into global brands successful? And Samantha, we'll start with you. You were talking a little bit before about how you were distributing, and you started with an agent, and then you yourself came over. So I'd love to hear a little bit more from you in terms of why you made the decision to come over yourself and whether that was really the only way to do it for what you were trying to achieve.
As I said, I came over myself to ensure that the brand was being communicated in the most purest way. In regards, we actually did pull the brand from the agent that had it at the time, and now we work on a distributor-based model, and we roll that out through all international markets. And just because logistics, like our core business is still in Australia, and we drop ship from Australia to our international distributors, but when we're trying to, everything of ours comes in a hand-carved wooden box, so you literally, which we get carved in a village in India. So we're shipping things from India to Australia, back from Australia to the US and around the world. So the logistics of the production are quite difficult, but we find that working with distributors is a much easier model.
Great, excellent. And then Adam, so obviously you really need consumer momentum, right? So it's the people that actually do the mustache growing and get the sponsorship that is the engine. So how did you reach new consumers as you went globally, as you've been expanding?
Yeah, that's what we focus on all year round, really. And as we look at the uptake in the various markets, obviously Australia initially was our biggest market. But last year, the UK, in terms of participation, was the largest market, Canada, the US, and then Australia. And the US market in particular is exceptionally hard. And Movember, similar to your brand, is very fashion-oriented. I mean, the challenge is to change your appearance. It's a huge commitment. And we don't spend any of the donor money on advertising programs. It's purely a word-of-mouth campaign. And when I moved across here in 2007 and ended in LA because the Prostate Cancer Foundation is there, not knowing anyone, it's exceptionally hard to create a word-of-mouth campaign when you don't know anyone. So often it was many a lonely night at bars going, hey, let me tell you about Movember. And it's like, these Americans are just looking at me going, you idiot. What? You've moved from Australia to America to sell mustaches. But there is persistence is so important, and patience. It just takes a long time, and probably similar to you, it's like building a brand in a genuine way takes a long time and never selling out, and that momentum is coming. We haven't reached that tipping point in the US, but I know we will, and for us it's a combination. We've got a whole marketing suite of things. Social media is key for us now. Events in October, ambassadors, particularly bands and DJs and athletes, are huge. It's why the campaign is so big in Canada, is because the NHL up there, we had 300 of the 750 players that are registered in the NHL participating, and that is the number one sport up there, where it's number 4 in the US. But last year we had a couple of quarterbacks and about 50 of the NFL players participating. Huge in action sports, but again quite niche. So it just takes time. The other thing that we focus a lot on is our sponsorship program. So we partner with for-profit brands that have the same target market and same brand values as ours, and we use their marketing muscle to help us promote participation to their audience. But there's no silver bullet with this. It's a combination of every single element of the marketing mix working seamlessly together and just persisting.
And similar to Samantha, was it really obvious to you that you personally had to move here in the US to make it a success?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for those people contemplating particularly moving to the US and moving the organisation here, the brand and the culture, which we heard about before, is so important to your success. And I believe the only way to get that right, at least initially, is a founder or a co-founder or a senior manager who has been with you a long time relocating here. You can't expect to come across here in the US and recruit an American and expect that you can fly in 1 week every 2 months or even more frequently and expect that they're going to get your brand and your culture, because you have to be here, because culturally it is a very different market. And it was one of the most profound things I think for me was moving across here. I'd obviously travelled to the US a fair bit, but I thought we were culturally quite similar. And when you go to Europe or Asia, you know, getting off the plane, it's culturally different. And it snuck up on me about 4 months in. I go, wow, actually, this is culturally very different. We had to change quite a few things around how our brand communications, and you're just not going to pick that up if you're flying in or out.
And you're not in Silicon Valley.
No, and I just wanted to throw up, I know the guys in the last session were big advocates for Silicon Valley and San Francisco. I live in LA, they're calling Santa Monica Silicon Beach, and if your technology or your startup is involved in technology and the convergence of content, for me, and I'm biased, that is the center of the universe. You've obviously got Hollywood, the kings of content, but what is now moving there is a huge technology push, and I think it's cheaper to do business there. There's obviously the hub straight back to Australia as well.
That's great.
I think something you just touched on, which was really important, even though we speak the same language, it's very, very different. And I know that even the word jewellery is spelt different in Australia as it is in America. And I think what you really need to do is hone your message and make sure it still rings true to brand, but it's relevant to the market. And I think that, if you're, selling in Japan, you have it translated, but you need to make sure that it's still relevant and that the language is the same. You still need to do that in foreign English markets to you.
It was sort of funny you mentioned that, because when I was coming across here, Mo is clearly slang from a moustache in Australia, but Mo in the US is either short for homo, Missouri, Mormon, and so I'm still looking for a homosexual Mormon that lives in Missouri that's going to do Movember.
He's a great brand ambassador.
Yeah, exactly. My job is done. You can have the CEO job title, man.
I love it. I've been here for 10 years, and today I was talking to someone and I was talking about a turtle, and this guy was like a total, it was just, he had no idea. I can't believe that's still happening. And Michael, over to you. So you were talking about how you guys have come to North America, and that's been a little bit later for you, but what audience did you target here, and how did you figure out how to go after them?
We, just due to the business that we're in, we have to go out and get state licenses and be regulated to actually sell in that state. So we can't come in and mass market to the 300 plus million people across the US. And so currently we're in 19 states, I think covers 60% of the population, and many more to come. So when we come in, we have a consumer offering and a corporate offering. And as you guys talk about, it's different. It's different from Australia. It's different from Canada. It's for us, the differences are we're not brick and mortar. You're not walking by our center. We're client acquisition strategy is SEM and SEO. And even for corporates and consumers, and we were early in the game to doing that for financial services. What someone types in as a keyword might be a little different from spelling, and so all of a sudden our search isn't as high on the ranking because what we thought worked in the UK or what we thought worked in Europe or Australia isn't working here. We also have a very much a customer service model that we think is leading edge, and we're dialing people back that have just signed up for our services, and we do that within 40 minutes, and they're not picking up the phone. We're going, well, why aren't Americans picking up the phone? Like they engaged with us. An Australian will pick up the phone, the Canadian will pick up the phone, but if someone doesn't recognize the phone number on their iPhone there, it's ignore. And so we're not able to close out that registration with them, and we can't get them onto deals. So we have to quickly adjust processes to have success. In the brand here, it's like attacking 50 different countries. 22 million people, I think, in Australia, 30 plus million in Canada. What we are going after here in the US, even with the 60% that we're attacking, is much larger than all the other offices we have combined. And to come in 11 months ago and just start in California and just start in San Francisco, it feels so overwhelming because you got 35 plus million people in California, and then we've got people in Florida that want us, and there's 22 million people in Florida that we could probably go after, and just the size is so large. It's at times, where do you start? Because the opportunities are there. It's low-hanging fruit. They're knocking on our door, and it's a good problem to have. It's how quickly can we attack.
And so on that, how did you decide what not to do?
We're still deciding.
Yeah.
I think due to the fact that we are a technology-based company, it's quick to see what's working, what's not. So it's quick to make adjustments in a process or in the way the website looks or how the app interacts with customers. That ability in what is somewhat still, or at least in the U.S., a very archaic industry. You're still used to going into your bank and getting a draft or filling out a piece of paper to make a payment across seas. The ability that we have with how we are structured in our back end, it's what's working, what's not.
Great. So that's some thoughts on success, and the things that strike me is, being there personally and making sure you've got leadership on the ground, and then also being really aware of the cultural differences, even in a country like America where you think it would be the same, right? We watch enough American TV in Australia that you feel like you would really know the culture, but I think you get surprised by some of the subtle differences, even in spelling or whatever it happens to be, turtles. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges. So what are some of the things that you guys have found more difficult than you anticipated, or even some mistakes that you've made that you'd be able to share with the group? So anyone can jump in.
I think Adam mentioned about coming to 2007 down to LA and you don't know anyone. I came down here 8 months ago with my wife, and we didn't know anyone. And you have this network back at home, and I think any business, word of mouth is so important. And so when you're walking into, it is a large city in San Francisco, there are larger, but in having to start from scratch again, and whether it's in a bar or in a networking event and having to get out on your own, that's challenging. And when you're carrying a business on the back of that, it's not like you're just down here as, I think for all of us up here with a new business and trying to make it, we've made it in other places, and now we need to win this new place. And that can be daunting, that can be exhausting, it can be sometimes you just want to go home, but when you start to get those quick wins, it's a lot of fun.
And did any networks work particularly well for you, or was it just sort of like going out and creating new networks, or did you use things like LinkedIn or alumni associations? Did anything help accelerate that when you arrived?
The online stuff really does help. The interesting thing we have an investor in Palo Alto, Excel Partners is one of our investors, and so you start to leverage a little bit of their networks and what they have. I think I was so excited to not be in snow that I try to get out in the outdoor activities and people that were engaging each other through sport or through stuff that was out and around the water or in the mountains there. So it's a small city that way too. Mm-hmm. So once you start to meet someone, it can quickly grow like wildfire.
Yeah, I think for me, the advanced network since 2007 was crucial for me, and I always knew that that was a safe place to go, but to integrate and go beyond that was really important. But the connections I made there that went on then were helpful and still are. I think one of the mistakes we made, which is similar to what you were saying just before, was we went wide instead of. Where do you focus in this country? And it's still a constant challenge for us even now. We focused on the obvious cities of LA because the Prostate Cancer Foundation, our beneficiary, was based there, and New York because it's the biggest city, and then Chicago. But then we ended up sort of focusing on 30 different cities with such a small team, and travel here is complex and long, and so. About 2 years ago, we wound it back and focused on about 8 cities. And some of them aren't your sort of traditional, big cities. They're sort of where Movember has resonated most. And then it spills over into, the rest of the country. But you can do it geographically, you can do it by industry, you can do it by ethnicity. There's so many ways you can dice this up. And I think the other mistake that we made was we looked at the population and the market potential here compared to Australia and what we'd achieved there and use that as a multiple. That is the biggest fundamental mistake you could possibly make, because that's not the market potential. This is 50 different states and 50 different markets, and you really need to break it down to that level. Our revenue in the States is only just at the Australian level now after 6 years, and we came across here with these amazing graphs and Excel spreadsheets, but that's just not the reality, and it just takes a long, long time. But the upside to that is you drop into the biggest market in the world.
I think that's really true, and I think doing your research, if you're are able to spend time in this market and identifying states rather than as an entire country. We've kind of identified 4 states that will work for us and that are similar to the Australian market. I think when we first came over here, like you, it's very naive to think that if you've got a very successful Australian business, you can just drop it in the USA and it will replicate. It's very much, over here your message needs to be very concise, it needs to be very edited. The market is so big, if you can get a tiny slice of where your niche is, it's going to be a successful business. But if you try and get the whole market, you'll just fail very dramatically because it's like dealing with 50 different countries. The markets are so very different. So yeah, really honing in and knowing your message and sticking to that.
Any sort of last pieces of advice? These guys, as you know, are really starting off and starting to think about what they'll be doing, how they can build their companies into successful brands, either in Australia or globally. Any sort of final tips for them?
And I think for us, what's worked is we came out of the gates as what we thought was leading edge, which we still believe was. We've always tried to stay on top of being innovative and never thinking that our product is the best and being satisfied with it. Nowadays, you got so many people trying to launch that new product or new way of interacting that user experience. And so for us to differentiate ourselves is challenging. I think in a way, potentially all we do, the 3 of us up here, is somewhat basic and it is simple. And so whether it's getting jewelry in a box from India compared to just getting a piece of jewelry, or for us, if it's being able to watch your funds on your app move from one place to another, you got to constantly challenge yourself and question yourself. And I think that was talked about in a few of the other sessions as well. And don't be shy to ask the right questions, because you're going to hear stuff that hopefully will only make you better.
Great, well, thank you. We have a few minutes for questions from folks. Anything you'd like to ask these guys? Mustache growing tips, yeah. So just wait for the microphone 1 sec. Thanks.
Thank you. My moustache is orange, so I never do it. It's absolutely horrible. Does Movember work in other languages? How does that work if you're in Denmark?
Denmark, surprisingly, is one of our biggest mainland European.
I knew it would be, actually.
Yeah. No, absolutely it does. And what we focused on first were the Commonwealth countries where they got the humour. This is why I think it hasn't got to the tipping point in the US, because they don't get the humour and the irony straight away, but when they do, they really get it. And then when you go to a non-English country, you rely so heavily on your translators and your partners in that area, because Movember is a play on word, and so much of our tone is our brand, and you can get translation, but is it speaking to your brand is really, really hard for us because we can't check it. So we have translation agencies, and then we have, Mo Bros and Mo Sisters that are on brand that we get to read it. But absolutely, it's working. We launched in 7 countries last year, France and Germany being the biggest markets in terms of the potential. And that's just a wonderful, wonderful challenge. And I just say, my advice to everyone here is most importantly, enjoy the journey. When I reflect back on my journey, the hardest and toughest years when you're doing stuff from a house in LA, not knowing anyone, trying to figure out bank accounts and social security numbers and visas and whatnot, and trying to make things work and taping stuff together. On reflection, they were the most wonderful times. I learned the most. They were most challenging, but at the time you don't appreciate it. So for all of you going through this journey, just make sure, just enjoy it and embrace it. And know it's hard, but know that when you get to the other side, I guarantee you'll look back and go, they were the best times of this journey.
Great. I think one of the things that my advice that I would give is you really have to commit to this market. And I think that America is very much like you can fly in from Australia and have a great meeting and you think it all goes great. And the time you get on the plane and you leave again, they're literally talking to someone else. Like, you need to be here, you need to be accessible. It's such a saturated market that it's a very competitive pool. I think the other thing that, obviously we're in Silicon Valley, but if you're not playing in the digital space with what you're doing, please start doing so. Like, it's such a, when we started the company, we weren't selling online. We launched our e-cart 6 years ago. It now makes up nearly 60% of our annual revenue. It's definitely, if you can get your business online in some way, shape or form, make sure you're doing that and learning about it every single week.
That's great. Other questions?
This will sound like a funny question, but Adam, are you able to shave your mustache and still run your business? The reason I ask is we run a business called Health Kit, and whenever we want to meet with people, I'd really kill for a hot chocolate, but they always want to go and meet an organic juice bar.
It's like Sam not wearing her jewelry. I had 3 months off, December, January and February. But then when you're doing stuff like this and media, they just do expect you. And it's such a outward expression of the brand and our personality that, when I get an American guy going, shit, I'm not sure I can do it. I'm not sure about my girlfriend or my boss, or I've got this big meeting. It's like, dude, I've got to rock this like 10 months of the year. Just 30 days and you don't need to shave for the first week. So for me, it's just such an important part of my role and being an advocate for not only Movember, but more importantly for men's health.
I almost grew one knowing I was sitting up here with them. So.
I can see it coming in.
Any final questions? Yes.
No.
Just go.
Adam, how do you view competition, given that you're in such a different space than the rest of us, I guess, competing in profit organisations? How do you see competition and what's your thoughts?
It's really interesting. I came from the for-profit, working with Vodafone in Australia and highly competitive wholesale business there. I was shocked at how competitive the charity world is, how bitchy and political it is. For us, it's about collaboration, and we learn from them, and we're all about partnerships. And we've got some wonderful partnerships with the Prostate Cancer Foundation, with Livestrong, organisations around the world that execute some of our programs. But we're all about collaboration and sharing best practice. And there's so many campaigns now in Australia. I think every month has got a Movember-esque type campaign, and that's great on the one hand. It does start to dilute the novelty of month-long campaigns and stuff like that. But that makes us just step up and go, well, how this year can we be different, and how can we stay ahead of the game? And if everyone can learn from us in our space, that is going to make this world a healthier and happier and safer place.
Great. Well, we're out of time, but thank you all so much. Please join me in thanking our panellists.